All right, I will call tonight's meeting to order, and we will start with the public comment. We have two members of the public online, no members in the audience, so we'll go online. Would either of the online guests like to make a comment at the start of the meeting? If so, please raise your hand. All right. Seeing none, we'll continue to move on. We'll do review and approval of the minutes from November.
So moved.
Yeah, I've got two different dates here. So anyway, we moved by Chris. Any, is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Well, just a quick question. Why was that a special meeting?
Because we had to change the date with not enough time to do so.
Oh, it's
we have to
opposed to,
call it as-
okay, I understand. And no comments.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you very much. Continuing to move on, subgroup updates. Why don't we start with soils testing? You guys have been moving on that.
Yeah, so I'll start, Chris.
Yep.
So on the table here in the room, and Chris, of course, has an electronic copy, we have the draft scope for engineering services to study the septic and figure out the septic capabilities of the area. And may have mentioned this last time, but I believe, we received the information from Rivercog, from the Thrive study, and from Jacobson that they need to fully understand that they need to understand the water table levels. They need to do some additional boring or digging. So we're interested in having them do that. We would need permission from the property owners. So there's kind of a sequence here. Okay, Jacobson needs to identify, right, these properties, we need to drill holes with the property owners. Bruce, I would imagine somebody on this team would contact the property owners,
Right.
Get their permission, and then let them go at it. A lot of the properties along the track, all the way to the river there behind the John Deere they appear to be one owner.
Right.
Right, so, there may be an opportunity with that owner to have a broader discussion as far as, interest, future interest, and where this may be going. I know that's part of the outreach plan anyways,
Yeah, but
it may be a combination meeting, initial outreach, hey, we'd like to test the septic, we'll give you the results, and what are you thinking of doing with this property?
No, we did have a chance to take a look at it. I don't know, does the committee want to go through it? Section by section, what would be the right way to review it? And let me just say, what I would propose we do, because this is a very, in my mind, a very major piece of work that we're recommending here. I would suggest that we talk about it tonight. I know I've got some questions about it. You guys have done a lot of work, which I very much appreciate. And then I hope what we could maybe do is set up a meeting with Chris Costa and the First Select. Possibly before Christmas, but if not, then right after the new year, and talk them through it. I mean, Chris has done a lot of these types of things. I'd like to get her input if you haven't already.
Yeah, I haven't, but I work with her all the time. I could easily send her a copy of this.
Right, well, and because this is also I think is going to be a substantial financial commitment, I want to get Carl on board as well. So what I thought is we could have our discussion tonight. put some comments on the table, work those comments in, and then maybe with the good help of Jennifer, we could try to set up a meeting, whether it's the full committee or whether it's just whoever wants to be involved and have go through the RFP with Chris and Carl so they fully understand what it is that we're trying to do.
Okay,
Okay.
and then after that, I would assume we'd meet with Jacobson just to have them kind of weigh in on the wording, not to steer it in their favor. You know what I mean? Just like, hey, is this practical? I mean, they may come out and say, hey, as worded, this is, $1 million. So that they should weigh in on wording as well.
Yeah, we could do that.
But that could be
contemporaneously.
after Chris and Carl.
I think we could do it contemporaneously. I mean, if we're comfortable with it tonight, that track could be going forward, because
In parallel.
right, the Chris and Carl, I think, is a different set of issues that we want to talk about. If Jacobson is just saying, hey, look, this makes sense, or you guys are way off, that's,
Okay,
that's fine too.
okay.
Okay.
So we can reach out to, I'll work with Chris to meet with Jacobson.
What, Brian over
Yes, Brian, Curtis.
And same thing, I would not have this, my recommendation, Bruce, would not to have our conversations with Carl and Chris, other than, as through our committee, Doug and I, so we don't run into having a meeting over this issue. And I'm just talking about the proposal itself, the document and language. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So it's not, quote unquote, it's not a meeting.
Yep, not it. Okay.
Yeah, and again, what we talked about in getting this down was really, Doug kind of cranked out a nice, what you would consider to be an RFP, and I just try to make it consistent, because I was down in town hall yesterday and told Carl that what we were working on. So I got some RFP language from the town and try to make it ring like that to the extent I could. And again, I'm thinking, obviously septic's a big issue, but after that, stormwater is a big issue. And, how much more we need to drill down into this document, where we can, it's more than septic capacity. We're also asking them to look at potential land uses. And the question is, does that belong here with them? That's kind of, I
Right,
think,
that's all part of my question as well, is I feel like we're maybe asking for too much within one RFP. We may want to segment this. So, I mean, I think there's clearly the first step of the soils, what's going on with the opportunity for septic, all of that. Whether or not that group that's doing that work has the ability to then take that information and come up with land use recommendations. I don't know, you've done a lot more work in this area than I have. I don't know whether that's really the same same set of skills, or whether we need a different set of skills to be able to do that.
I guess what I would say is, I really, in looking at it, I'd liked the introduction and background. Let's talk about scope and objectives. And then when we're talking about, the detail being existing conditions, septic capacity, and I just don't think I think 3.3 is premature under this, which is the land use feasibility. We don't need that from this group. And actually, Doug, back to your question, I think that could triple the budget on this item. So my suggestion would be that 3.3 comes out in its totality. Except I want to pull in the pedestrian walkway definition and bring that up top and add that to the scope there. But then not look for any feasibility analysis. That would come out. Again, as we said, we're really not concerned about constraints with respect to anything other than the world of septic and deep. We're not, so zoning comes off the table. So my sense is we just could get rid of this whole section, and then get into the deliverables, what we're looking for.
So I would like to comment, I guess, little, maybe pushback on that. I had envisioned maybe not in-depth development scenarios, but just like, say they look at the property Glade View is on and we get permission to do testing and we share it with Glade View. It would be nice to know, hey, this would fit 200 apartments, not just, oh, here's septic results. This could fit a hotel, or this could fit apartments, or it can't. Just kind of, I guess it's kind of almost like macro possibilities, just so we know what we're dealing with. Or, apartments, definitely not in this whole area, but small businesses.
Lane,
So the words in the beginning of 3.3, the first, propose and analyze various businesses. Maybe we don't need a lot of analysis, but just.
right, Casey,
Well, I'm just thinking some of this is maybe like a chicken egg situation where this is an enormous undertaking if we do all of this.
Right.
And I think I think even a lot of, from an engineering standpoint, from a testing standpoint, they can only tell us so much without having some sense of what someone's interested in doing there. So unless we're saying to them, like, consider these 10 potential land uses, I mean, there's just so much involved in site design. And we're not, A, I don't think it's appropriate for us to do site design, and B, I don't think we're there because property owners have to figure out what they want to happen on their properties. So I think to say, I think if we asked, I mean, so from a land use standpoint or a zoning standpoint, I mean, I've seen situations where a design company has done a basic, like, okay, under your zoning regs, if you had to do this much parking and, you require this much parking and your maximum building coverage is this much and your max, and they kind of could make the box and the parking. But even that is a pretty big undertaking. And that's if like we are saying to them, like, okay, we want to see first floor retail office and second floor residential or something. But I think if we're saying we don't really know yet, then, I mean, I think we have it somewhat narrowed down, but I don't think we have it narrowed down enough yet to start totally exploring like zoning. And I'm wondering if with things like septic capacity and things like that, that's also, I'm not sure how far they can go or how far it would be worth it to go from a cost standpoint. I guess that would be a good question for like Jacobson or someone, until somebody's trying to actually design the site for like a specific or a combination of sites for like a specific use. So like, I think flagging wetlands is something that is useful because then I mean, that's sort of like a clear cut, like, okay, nobody can build here kind of thing, or you have major limitations. Only this much of the property is developable kind of thing. And I'm sure they can do, soils tests to say kind of how much capacity, but I think that's kind of like maybe as far as we can go right now.
So let me-
I'd like to add this. So did you read the septic results that are in the Dropbox?
Yeah,
Yeah. So what that says is they characterize the soils, but they said like, hey, we need to know what the water level is. So they need to dig to find that. But they come up with numbers like, well, it looks like it could maybe handle 7,500 gallons per day.
right, yeah.
Right, so what's that mean? What I don't want to do is have them do a study and say, well, here's a bunch of septic data, and then we're going to look at it, and we're going to say, all right, so what's all this mean?
Well, I think
We
that's,
have to know, what can the Gladeview property, what are just like the high level capabilities, and that doesn't mean we're proposing it or they're designing it, it's just, can it handle apartment buildings, or is it going to be a campground? Or
from my perspective, we need to figure out what we think the list of potential land uses for the area are first, before we start looking at, and then you can back into, like, based on the septic capacity, like how much of something could go there. But I just think, and I don't know, maybe that's because that's like my experience, and that's like typically, because we're not gonna go to each property and say, okay, like, you're allowed to build apartments, and then the next property, like, you're allowed to build retail, and then the next you know what I'm saying? Like, I think we should think about what we might want to, I know we've talked about that some, but I think we need to get a little bit further down the road with that, and like maybe some conversations with the planning and zoning commissions before.
yeah, I hear you, and it's good to have diverse
Yeah.
opinions.
Well, let me-
I had envisioned, they say like, all right, there's a number of small lots, and they might say, so septic capacity is very poor. But if you combine these with this one over here that has a lot of capacity, you could put a hotel in, or a small retail, or, retail with apartments above it. It's like conceptual to move the ball. It's, zoning to me is down the road, and final design is down the road. This is.
So Doug, let me try this.
Yep.
The, one of the frustrations I had with the river code study was exactly what you're saying. It says this has the capacity for a small, by health department definition, but it doesn't say kind of what. And so, yet in another part of that report, it also lists out, the various different, water permitted kind of things of a number of different uses. So where I think you are, and I think we need to ask Jacobson or somebody whether this is possible, but to be right at that kind of generic level of saying, okay, this property on its own has relatively little capacity, maximally support, 2 apartments, just throw it out. However, this landowner owns all of these different parcels. When you look at the entire group of parcels together, that creates a different scenario of the kind of septic that could be supported based on that. And that could be apartment, could be retail, could be light industrial, but keeping it at very much that level. To me, I hear that as being what you're saying, rather than necessarily saying 7 apartments or whatever. It's more a matter of trying to just get a sense of what could work versus just getting data. Right? Is that?
Yeah, it's the start of the conversation.
Right.
And it's going to be very iterative with this committee, where that goes, and with the property owners and the town.
And so then I think we need to understand from, when this is shared with Jacobson, I think we need to hear from them what is possible at what I would consider, a conservative budget. Because what I don't want is, I don't want a heavy duty analysis, kind of the way Casey was talking about, that then comes back and says, well, you could, like a Monopoly game, you could put 3 hotels over here and 2, we don't want that at this point, because we're not in charge, the property owners are in charge.
Right.
But this would be good information for them to understand, here is capacity and capability. Right?
Yep, I agree.
Okay. Chris, you on board with that?
Yeah, and because I think, and Doug and I were talking. I mean, the real value in this thing is the ability to combine the parcels. I don't know if anyone. I mean, the Westbrook outlets. They've got a. They are working with Deep right now to master plan that entire 50-acre facility to have 100,000 homes, 100 homes, 200 apartments, 100,000 of retail and restaurant, 100-room hotel, and that's all a function of being able to build a self-contained wastewater treatment facility. So they're going to have one facility for that entire 50,000 square foot, square mile difference. And that's going to be really the value in this project, I think, and how you're going to roll it up. So I would agree that, I don't think we have the ability to drill this thing down as deep, no pun intended, at this point.
Okay.
So we can,
Can I just ask, does anybody around this table know what the system is that's being used at the apartments up by the train station? I mean, that's all one
Yeah.
septic for 184 apartments or something like that, whatever
Yeah.
that number is. And I just didn't know whether we knew kind of what
Well,
the
that's right.
amount
And
of
that's
property was that.
Lexington Partners. It's the same development group.
They're
So
the ones at the train station too?
Yeah.
Okay, we should find that out,
Yeah,
because
that's a great question.
Chris Costa would know
yeah, from an acreage standpoint, be good to know what because I imagine the soils are relatively similar. Okay, so let's do a little bit of more detailed review now.
Right.
This, along with the FAQs that we're gonna get to, I want to make sure we have a consistent definition of what Mariners Way consists. And the TIF district is from Mystic Market all the way around the bend on Ferry Road to 40 Ferry Road. That's the TIF district. And so I would like to keep our boundaries the same, and particularly here where we talk about the, cutting off at the, or maybe it's the FAQ, where we're talking about cutting off at the highway entrance. I mean, at that point, we've cut Gladeview out entirely, so we need to bring that back when we get there. But let's, as a group, let's remain consistent with what the TIF district that the town has already approved or set up, and we'll call that Mariners Way. And that goes right down to 40 is right next to the marina there as you make the bend. Okay, that's one thing. Second question is real focus on stormwater. So stormwater here versus underground percolation. What are we trying to get to with stormwater?
It's a concern, especially, this is the problem is a problem they're having over at the old,
The big Y.
Big Y, but also across the street there, where El
Whole
Forno is.
Whole
And it's the sheet flow concern and runoff into the rivers and other wetlands. So it's a when you dig this place up, you're going to go at different depths to accomplish the two things. So,
But again, going back to Casey's point, how do you know anything about stormwater unless you have in mind what the development's going to be?
yeah,
You
no,
know,
that's a
Stormwater is all about impervious surfaces.
Yep. Nope.
I mean, they could do they could do some perk tests that could potentially be used in the future.
Okay.
But I mean, the perk rates might change depending on well, I don't know how rapidly that can change, depending on how far in the future we're talking. But the perk rates would basically tell how quickly the water is getting absorbed into the ground, and that's usually kind of useful for both wetlands and stormwater design.
Yeah, so Bruce, you have a good point. I would just add, like, the big Y, Whole Foods area there, like when they put big Y in, all that runoff is now inundating Chalker Beach
Right.
and the marsh over there. So it just needs to be some thought to, okay, if something big were to go into Gladeview property and it was less impervious surfaces, where would the runoff go? Was it gonna wash out the Amtrak train? Probably not, but they just need some like conceptual consideration of that and then get into the details with a detailed design.
But I also think when they're doing the site design, like, they have design opportunities to address stormwater, depending on what they're trying to do.
They didn't do it over expensive plans.
Well, that was a long time ago. Nowadays, the requirements are very different.
Yeah, I agree, but they're and this is we don't want to get deep into this, but Whole Foods is being ratcheted. They agreed to do some, holding tanks or holding
Right,
ponds.
but that's what I'm saying. So like, they can design the site to address a lot of the stormwater issues,
Agree.
depending on what they're doing and how much impervious, like you said.
So the question is, do we leave it in here?
Well, and so maybe it's
Instead of comprehend, like in 2.0, perform a comprehensive septic and stormwater evaluation, take out comprehensive.
Yeah,
More of a
it's an initial. It's a
high level.
yeah. Okay, and so one of the things that is not in here is a sense of, I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, we know pretty well where wetlands are in Mariners Way. And wetlands covers a fairly significant portion. So within Mariners Way right now, there is some easily identifiable potential developable properties. And it seems to me that the focus of any work ought to be on those properties rather than everything from Mystic Market to Foley Ferry Road. You know what I mean? And there's no kind of restriction within this. We're saying just go take a look at that. So I would like to have this be more conditioned on where development could happen.
Yeah, I guess I would expect
them.
them to exclude wetlands, but
Well,
we could make it specific.
yeah, I think we ought to make it specific.
Yeah, okay.
Um, so then we'll modify 3.3 just on the conversation. And then the last
So,
piece,
so when we modify it, I mean, how are we gonna modify it? Just, instead of propose and analyze, present
I would say-
conceptual
I would
ideas
say
or
identify
Or-
or, you know,
match capabilities with possibilities?
yeah, or, the way you have it with, you have propose and analyze business, housing and recreation scenarios. I would say kind of identify, the business, housing and recreation scenarios, that, that could happen or conceptually could be there or something along those lines. So that we don't want an analysis. We really just want
Right.
the high level. Then you mentioned before, and I want to make sure that we're on board with this, that if this study goes forward, and if the property owner gives permission, one advantage to the property owner is we will be providing that property owner with the report that we get, correct?
Yes.
On board with that?
Otherwise, why would a property owner agree to it?
Right. Right.
I just wanted to make sure, the clarity that we own it, but yes, we can share it with them.
Right.
Yeah, and there's also, brownfield, restrictions too, right?
Yeah.
What the Amtrak laydown area is, I don't think that's ever been cleaned up. It's been characterized, but.
Well, that'll be an interesting question, seeing how it was the topsoil that was the contaminated soil, and that topsoil disappeared.
So has it been remediated?
It may well be, we'll have to
Okay. So
find out.
I would think
Self-help?
Jacobson should be aware of that, I would think.
Right. Okay, other comments from members of the committee?
I'm wondering if it might be useful to have a sense of how many of the property owners might agree to this going into it, because it'll have such an impact on the cost. So like in order for a firm to give us a cost and to make a cost proposal, or do we just want them to propose it for like the whole shebang and then hope? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so I had envisioned they're gonna look at the existing records. So for the existing, like for your business, there's something on file, so they're just gonna look at that and they're not gonna do anything more other than maybe tabulate it. So they'll do that for all the existing businesses, then you get the parcels, and there may be some that need testing, but then you get into the glade view and these big lots in the back. That's where additional testing would be. So I didn't see it as like dozens and dozens of test holes.
Right, and when you look at the if you look at the property, go through, trying to bring up a map. I mean, basically, you've got 3 property owners that have from
It's from the Rome Tree cul-de-sac area.
even before Rome Tree, from where the John Deere, past Rome Tree, a little bit of, there's a different, but then all the way into the back, up Rome Tree and then down. All of that is three property owners. And then my guess is, if we are able to even work with the 3 of them and get, a sense, that would take us a long way. And then Glavy.
So initially, yeah, we were focused on the south side, and then we had a discussion here, and we said, let's do the north and the south side. you know, the north being mostly full of businesses. And I understand, you know, like tabulating existing data, it's not really current, it could be very old, so, you know, but maybe Jacobson would make a assumption, okay, for this area, we just need to do one test hole and that's good enough for these 10 lots. You know, that's where we kind of need their expertise. I don't think we need to go into every individual lot.
Right, and I think that based on the desk analysis they did for the Rivercock study, they would be able to answer that question because they at least know enough about what soils are there.
Right.
Then they would need to tell us what they need to do underneath those soils to give us good information.
That's kind of like, you know, in their deliverables would be how many test, you know, pits they're going to need to dig, and they'll have to do an analysis to start, and let us know, hey, you know, it's 10 or it's 20 or it's 50. And you don't know until they've done that initial level of diligence.
Right, right. Okay. That work for you? What? Okay. Anything else? Ready to move on to the next report?
If there's any other input, yeah, shoot, email. Thank you.
Okay. We are on to business property owners. So let me, I'll jump in.
Okay.
Tracy is without her partner, so I have offered to be her new partner and working with the property owner. And I have actually put in calls and I'm setting up meetings with what I refer to as the big four right now, of the property owners. And then I'm not sure how much is gonna get done before the Christmas holidays, but what I plan to do is to simply start by, I don't have phone numbers for all the businesses over there, but just start walking down the street and doing my, from the political days of door knocking, going and knocking on doors and saying, introduce myself, we'll have the FAQs, that can be a leave behind, and be able to just make some connections, let people know what we're doing, try to get good contact information so we can keep people up to date and move them forward. And I know that this is a busy time of year for Tracy, and so I'm, you know, told her I'd let her know when I'm in the hood, but if she's busy, then that's fine. If she's not, come join me and we'll do that. So unless you have more of an update to that?
No, except I know I sent you the updated info, but I should send it to Jennifer too.
Yeah.
Because I did have some additions that I made to the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
So, sorry, Jennifer, I owe you that one.
Bruce, we had talked about maybe like an open house in January. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's premature, though. I think we're moving very quickly towards needing to do it. So whether or not it's January or early February, I think we're in that time frame. We still need to do it, and we need to have good, I would say, information about where we're going. So I look at it as being an opportunity to, you know, talk about and answer questions about these soils testing. We talk about streetscape in just a minute, and hopefully by the end of this week, I'll have a proposal on the streetscape, and we can be talking to the business owners as well as the property owners about what we're thinking about on streetscape, but we need their input in order to be able to move something forward. So that would be a great, I think just the two of those things would be a very substantive kind of open house conversation.
So it would be like a kind of more formal meeting where there's a presentation and Q&A as a group, as opposed to mix it, pardon the language, mix and mingle and just, you know, sidebars here and there. It's message.
I think what would be great would be an outcome of that kind of meeting that creates a, Mariners Way business property owners group
Like a team,
that,
yeah.
that could then do a mix and mingle and that, and really begin to pull those businesses together. But I think we need to show some traction, and we need to show, evidence that stuff is happening. And so I would like to use this meeting for that purpose.
Good.
All right, let's move on to, streetscape. So we've had let's see if I can. Casey and Jennifer and I had with Carl, had a very good meeting with the folks at the Department of Transportation, as well as Rod Harriman from Rivercog. And unfortunately, it was a Teams meeting, so I had a whole PowerPoint presentation to be able to show them streetscape ideas and be able to have them say yes, no, that. But I'm just not used to Teams, and so I couldn't get my pictures up. So I had to go from television announcer to radio announcer to try to describe what was going on as best as I could.
I couldn't get my sound to work for the first 15 minutes.
So we're all having this. But anyway, so the good news is we had good representation from DOT. We had kind of 3 different levels within DOT, both the regional level and at the state level. And they didn't say no to anything, except for they were pretty strong about the fact that when we're talking, if we wanted to do a divided multimodal path from the roadway, that we could not put in a immovable object like a wooden fence or something like that. That they weren't happy about trees as in between. They didn't mind. They could have, there could be a discussion about trees within the right of way, but just not in right there next to the road. And so, but that was good. I think that it gave us a better idea, at least me a better idea of what was possible. They were clearly supportive of the idea of trying to do something multimodal, and so that worked out pretty well. It's the and then we raised the issue about, is there a better way to get in using the Amtrak bridge to get people from the train station down and onto Mariners Way? And I think the consensus was not in my lifetime. That sure, you could get started on that discussion, but maybe. And so, but we talked about, well, could we be doing something along the lines of another bridge, not trying to do something cantilevered off of the Amtrak bridge, but another bridge somewhere that would connect to the pathway and be able to do it. And there was, they said, yes, we would still need to be involved with Amtrak on that, but they were more favorably inclined that was possible. Now, that may have gone from 1% possibility to 10%, but at least it was moving in the right direction of possibility. So that was something to look at. And then Rob Harriman, after the meeting, with his Rivercog connections, he sent me a couple of ideas of things, of bridges, pedestrian bridges that were being built in other parts of the state, that not over Amtrak, unfortunately, they're over conduct roads. But so the Amtrak piece is still a big piece, but I think it's something that Carl is very supportive about, and we just need to figure out the right way to do that. So there's a way to do this. We just have to figure it out. And, we may want to be looking at, kind of other towns that may want to do something similar and do a little power and numbers kind of. So, they also mentioned that there was a division of DOT that, does road safety audits. And, recommendation was we should get in touch with them. Got in touch. They are, the road safety audit group is currently revamping their application, for this, but, this is something that they would come in and do and take a look at the roadway and make some recommendations as to how best to utilize it from their point of view. So that was great. So, as soon as their application system is, open again, I think we gotta take advantage of that.
Is that the consultants do that? Like this is SS4,
Yeah, I don't know who it's,
a
you know,
consultants that are doing
it's
studies.
under DOT's aegis, so it would not be the town doing it, it would be
Right.
DOT doing it. So who does it for them? I don't know.
Jennifer, is that the same thing that's being done on 154?
Um,
Like from Bochum Road up to?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, those
Yeah.
consultants. And Rob Harriman's in the middle of all that.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a specific study based on, fatalities, I think.
Right.
Trying to, but, yeah.
Okay.
Like they did a study, what are some trouble spots, and those are the ones they targeted, like where people had been killed or hit.
Okay. Okay.
But they know all the standards and what works and what doesn't work, so it'd be a good group.
So anyway, so we will be in touch with them. As I mentioned, we've been pushing, Jacobson to come back to us with a proposal based on a revamp of the 2017 study that was never funded. And, I was hoping I would be able to walk in here tonight with something, but unfortunately, there's been some illnesses of members on the team, so, I don't have it. And so hopefully I'll have it by the end of the week. If I get it, I'll share it with people and we can, discuss it at the next meeting. Anything more from you, Casey? Okey-dokey. Next item on the agenda is final review of the FAQs. So thank you, everybody, for your contributions, and thank you, Jennifer, for taking the contributions and turning them into a document that isn't marked up.
I interpreted everything.
But again, I would just say my first comment is, when we say, what is Mariner's Way, right at the outset, we need to be consistent. And it is, instead of Boston Post Road East there in the second line, that should be Mill Rock Road East. And then, to Ferry Road, we can even say number 40 Ferry Road. Just to keep all consistent. So that is a comment from me. And then one other one is, it's a little bit of a language thing, but on the second page, middle, since all property in this area is privately owned, how will the town be able to redevelop this area? And instead of saying that the town will not spearhead private property redevelopment, I agree, but I would rather start with what the role is rather than what the role isn't. And so my thought is that what we would do is not say the first line, but say the town's role is to act as partner and facilitator with property and business owners to assist in appropriate zoning changes, that kind of thing. So that we take out the, the what we're not gonna do and talk about what we are gonna do.
I think, a good suggestion.
And then my only last thing is I'm happy to have my contact info as being the person to get in touch with if they have any comments or things, ideas they want to share.
And do we want to keep in here, we're gonna generally meet on the second, fourth Tuesday of each month?
Yes. Unless somebody has a plan.
I should have done a list of meetings for 2026.
Yeah, and the Board of Selectmen changed their meeting time. So they meet on the second Tuesday and the fourth Tuesday. And I believe on the fourth Tuesday, they have moved it from 6 to 5. I don't think that affects us because we're gonna be upstairs anyway.
Okay.
But just so you know then. Okay, so with that,
So you want to keep with the 2 meetings scheduled for 2026?
yeah, I think we're gonna be picking up speed here, so I wanna have them on the calendar. We can always cancel if we don't need them. I think having them is a good idea. Are we then ready for final, Jennifer to finalize these and then for Tracy and me to use them as we talk to people on Mariners Way? Okay,
Do you still want to adapt from this, like a 1-page flyer, or do people feel comfortable that this is okay as the handout material?
you know what I was thinking about that? One of the things that when I've been knocking on doors on the political side, it takes me a little, a few different doors to kind of figure out what the right information is that people want. So my suggestion would be, we have everything here. Now let's go and find out what is really on people's minds, and then maybe we could get something more consolidated, later. But
And revise
let's-
it.
Right, let's hear what people are thinking about, and we can kind of take it from there. Yep. Discussion of additional skill sets. As we know, Tina, the good news is she got elected on planning. The bad news is she obviously doesn't have as much time as Doug does. So she decided to
It's too good.
resign from there. So we need to fill her seat, and rather than my just going to the first selectman and the board of selectmen and saying we need an additional person, I would like to go and talk about a person who has certain skills. And as I've thought about this, one of the key skill sets that I know I don't have, that I think would help bolster the committee, would be somebody who had a background or had worked in development financing, who, as ideas come up, could say, pretty much that's just never going to work, or here's the way to do it, or we need to get a subsidy from the state in order to be part of the stack, whatever the case may be. Having a person who knows that off the top of their head would be very helpful, at least to me. So that's one skill set that I would, and I don't know whether there's anybody in town who has that skill set, but at least we could ask around, and then if there's people that we know, plus if people that.
Bless you.
Thank you.
We could recommend that to the Board of Selectmen. And then the second is design. One of the things that I thought Tina brought to the table that I was really happy about was kind of a sense of design. She'd been on the architectural review board. She kind of was thinking about Mariners Way as a place, and that's a loss to not have that, because I think having having that thought process. So that would be another skill set that I think we ought to be at least seeing whether we could bring on board. But I didn't know whether there were other skill sets that people felt we were lacking at this point that we ought to bring on board as well.
So you filled the gap with outreach, so they
Right.
don't really need that extroverted interaction, okay?
Right, hopefully, we'll see whether Jason and I can make that happen, but hopefully we will begin to make that happen. Chris, any other thoughts you might have?
I mean, a lot of times you'll see, the local commercial lender participate in these types of groups that has backgrounds in lending and commercial lending and real estate lending. That could bring something to bear there. And is that more valuable than getting somebody with some design skill set and all that? I don't know.
I don't think we're limited to one additional person. If we had a couple of different skill sets, I wouldn't have any trouble asking for two.
Yeah. But
Yeah, the other thing to add is, I believe we had like a land use agency meeting, I'm not sure if you were there, but it was maybe in the last year where, these people associated with financing from across the state were in here just saying how they see things, the money flowing and, with the different developers and then we brought the developers in after that. I think it was land use agencies, or maybe it was just planning or housing task force, but if we can't get the skill set on this committee, we should be able to reach out to
Yeah.
them. And Chris Costa, I think, coordinated that.
Okay,
These are people who just deal with us all the time.
right.
They're funding projects across the state, or connecting the dots, I should say.
Yeah, I'm always impressed by people who know something that I don't know, which is a lot of people. But when I have talked to developers and said, well, what about this or this? They know right then and there. They know the numbers already in their head and be able to make it a judgment. So that's the kind of skill that I think we could use and be able to help move some of our ideas.
I had thought that exact same thing. And I also had wondered if even having a developer that's not interested in doing anything on Mariner's Way, because they are familiar with the financial, like, lasagna layering, so to speak. But also maybe some of the other things that just, kind of like you're saying, like, happen behind the scenes, or that sort of a sense of, like, at least from a developer standpoint, like, I'd never build that there, or like, I'd build
Right.
that there, or this would never work there because from my standpoint.
Yeah, I'll give you a classic example. This just blew my mind and has blown my mind. I was doing the SED study for the City of Hartford in 2000. And we had a consulting group that was helping. We were talking about different things along Farmington Avenue there. And he said, well, this is what you want on the westbound side, and this is what you want on the eastbound side. Because on the eastbound side, the commuters are coming in, so they want their coffee, and on the westbound side, they want their dry cleaning, so it's just like this,
Yeah.
people who know that kind of stuff, it's like, wow, I never would have thought of that. But that's exactly the kind of, people who know it, and it would be good to have that skill. Okay, so why don't, unless you come up with any other ideas, I will,
Yeah, the other thing I'll just throw out, and like I said, I work with Chris a lot. People in town who are interested in volunteering and being on a committee, they talk to Carl and Chris and maybe others in the building, so it's good to see, if they know any candidates.
right, exactly. That's what I thought, if we put some skill sets out, we didn't have to come up with the names, they might have people who knocked on their door that would be helpful, so. All right, we're coming toward the end. Comments from ad hoc committee members. Anybody comments that they would like to make at this point?
The only question I have is, if you talk to some of these large property owners, like, are you gonna bring up the soil testing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah. I'm gonna talk about the things that we're looking to do and why.
perfect, thank you.
I'm sure you don't have anything else to do on December 23rd than to come to a meeting. So, unless, why don't we plan on not having another meeting in December? Unless there is something that is so important that we need to call a special meeting. That would be if we have to approve something along those lines, which I don't think is going to happen, but we will not have a December 23rd meeting. I don't know whether we've listed that yet or not, so.
I didn't cancel it yet. It was,
And then we will, pick it up on on the second Tuesday in January, which is what? No. Looks like it would be January 13th. And I'm sure that between now and then we'll be sharing some information. Okay, any comments from anybody? Then we will adjourn. Take a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much and have a great holiday, everybody.